we are here to help. I mean, a lot of times you talk about incentives these days and what's going on in that world. But long before there were incentives, there were film commissions who just helped filmmakers, and we still do. We still help you with bureaucracy and red tape and casting and, crewing and good advice, we hope, and that kind of thing. So we're still here to make your life easier on location. One of the things we always say in Mississippi, if, a lot of times a filmmaker will call and they've got, $70,000 or $30,000 or whatever, and they could come down to Mississippi or somewhere and utilize the incentive program, but a lot of times it doesn't make sense because of the savings that you can find in your own kind of place, in your comfort zone, calling your friends and having your movie made. But in other instances, we can be very helpful if you need something specific that's outside of your area. And we can help find other like-minded filmmakers in our areas that can help you make your film and be your new comfort base for filmmakers, for filmmaking. So we were joking backstage that any one of us could talk for 45 minutes, so we're not going to do that to y'all. But I am going to introduce everyone's going to introduce themselves and say a little bit about what it is that they do. And then we hope that there'll be a dialogue probably among us, but certainly questions from you. Again, we're all used to answering a lot of questions about our place and what it is that we do. So I'm going to start with you, Andrew.
Thank you, Ward. Hi, everyone. I'm Andrew Corkin of Uncorked Productions. I am a New York-based film producer. But New York-based, I've shot pretty much all over the States. I've shot internationally as well. Some of my recent credits include Martha, Marcy, May, Marlene, King Kelly, Oversimplification of Our Beauty, and We Are What We Are. And I had the pleasure of working with this gentleman, Ward, on a film called Big Significant Things in May in Fair, Mississippi.
My name's Chris Olson. I'm an Austin, Texas-based producer who has lived and worked there for almost 15 years now. And I came up through the ranks sort of as a PA, location assistant, production manager, line producer, and am now producing films that shoot both in Texas but all around the country. Some recent things that I was a part of was Lovers of Hate that played at Sundance a couple of years ago, The Happy Poet, and a movie called The Overbrook Brothers. So I'll hand it off to you.
Hello. Because I can be loud people, let me tell you. I'm Theresa Hollingsworth. I'm the Senior Program Director at South Arts in Atlanta, Georgia, where we are a regional arts organization, and we work with the National Endowment for the Arts and also with 9 Southern state arts agencies. I direct our film program, which is Southern Circuit Tour of Independent Filmmakers. The program was originally housed at the South Carolina Arts Commission, moved to South Arts in 2006, and I took over the direction of that particular program in 2010, even though I've been with South Arts for a number of years. So we actually bring filmmakers into the South. You get to tour. With your film, we pay you. I keep saying we're one of the best kept secrets around. See, you just, your head went like, oh my God, somebody pays me. We'll talk later. But anyway, thanks for letting us be on the panel today.
Yep. Yeah. Jerry Steffes, New York State Governor's Office for Motion Picture and Television Development. I was actually first here at the IFFM at that time when it was in Columbus Circle in the old Arts and Culture building in 1902 as a filmmaker. And so I'm a great supporter, been a member of the IFP, love the IFP, love this stuff. Very grateful to be here. Thank you, Ward. Went to school at Syracuse University, got my master's in film up there. Very happy to say Syracuse University this year on Hollywood Reporter's top 15 list. Not to take anything away from NYU guys or anything like that. And even though Ward said we want to talk about things in addition to and aside from incentives at some point, I do want to tell you about some of the exciting things in New York State incentives. But do remember, we represent not just the city, we represent from here to Buffalo, where Marcy, you guys have shot in the Hudson Valley a couple times, and Brooklyn to Buffalo.
That's it? That's your whole paid political announcement there for New
No,
York
I didn't
State?
do it yet. Can I
No,
do it
go
now?
ahead. Go. Let's
Okay,
get
here we go.
Let's get it out of the way.
Listen, I have some stuff written down because I have some numbers to give you that tell a really good story, and it's an important story for a lot of people who come to this particular event to know. Keep in mind, when Governor Andrew Cuomo came into office, he made economic development a top priority, creating more jobs for New Yorkers. And he went out and created a bunch of innovative programs across all different sectors, including the entertainment sector, to try and make things happen, make jobs for New Yorkers. Since 2011, under Governor Cuomo's administration, we've added more than 336,000 private sector jobs in New York, one of the first states to come back from the recession in terms of bringing employment back. And the film industry is very much a part of that focus. My office is part of the Empire State Development Corp, which is the economic development agency for New York. So the programs that have been put in place have been targeted to growing jobs. And let's see what some of the things that they've done. Governor Cuomo in 2011 signed a legislation that tripled the post-production tax credit from 10 to 30%. It added a 5% bump for post-production that happens outside the metro area. So you get 35% if you're doing it in the Hudson Valley or in Buffalo. And keep in mind that that's a post-production credit, different from the production credit. So even if you shoot your film in another state, Texas or Mississippi, and you want to come back here to post, you can get that credit for that one. In the production credit, for both credits, he extended the funding at $420 million a year. So it's now going till 2019. It was 2 years ahead of it running out, but that gave the kind of assurance and the kind of confidence in the credits, because some of these credits come and go, that showed people that this credit was going to be around for a while. He eliminated some troublesome programs, and he also added an additional 10% on qualified labor that comes into effect in 2015 for shooting in certain areas upstate, which means that if you're shooting upstate in northern, western, or central New York, you can get 40% on your below-the-line labor and 45% if you're doing post-production up there. That's a lot. So is it working? Yes. Since these things have come into place, New York's never been busier. We have 141 applications to the program in the first 3 quarters of this year. That's more than any previous year. And we've still got 2 weeks left of September. So we've got 141 applications with almost $2 billion in direct spend in New York, creating 11,000 hires. That's just in that one window of time. Since we started in 2011, we've had 407 applications with 36,000 hires with $5.7 billion in spending. So these things are working. These policies are working, and I'm, again, happy to say that some of the panelists here have taken part in those credits, and you're going to tell us how great they were in helping around. So I do want to talk about all the other things we do, locations and stuff, but I wanted to get that message out to make you aware of the fact that New York is really committed to this industry. New York is here to help you, both as much through the credit and also through location scouting and all the other things that we can do. Thank you, Ward.
So what he was really saying that it's way too busy up here in New York State, and you need to come to Mississippi, make your next film. Or West Virginia. We have the West Virginia Film Office here. Pam Haynes is back here. And are there any other any other film commissions here? So there you go. Thank you, Jerry. It's a great program, and we're not envious of any other state's programs, but we love their program, especially since people are filming in Mississippi and doing their post up here. Theresa, what's the process for Southern Circuit?
For the Southern Circuit, we're always in 2 years, 2 planning years and also presenting years. But apply through Without a Box. It'll be posted sometime in November when I get around to posting it, hopefully November 15th. The submission process will be open for about 3 months. We have a 3-tiered adjudication process. We accept films that are narratives, docs, experimental, animation. To give you an idea about where our filmmakers go and what they do, this season, in the 13-14 season, I have 18 filmmakers and films touring in 23 communities in 9 southern states for 138 screenings total. So it's not a festival, it's a very different model. Our filmmakers are the star of the show. You go to a community, you go on a tour, you're your own roadie, you get to go by yourself. But you travel between 10 to 14 days doing somewhere between 7 and 10 screenings. We screen at indie theaters, a lot of colleges and universities, art museums, performing arts centers, community colleges, historic theaters in the region. We do more and more work with small city governments actually wanting to present film. We're not in Atlanta and we're not in Miami. They have an indie film presence. They have lots of opportunities for audiences to see independent film. We're in small to mid-sized communities where there aren't that many options or there are 0 options. Education is a very important part of the program. A lot of times we have the opportunity for filmmakers to be in classrooms or to present at senior centers, to work with high school students. So for us, it's really a triangle. It's Southern Circuit working with filmmakers and then working with presenting communities.
And what is the Southern Circuit? What are the states?
The states that we tour in, first of all, filmmakers can be from anywhere in the United States. We're not just talking about Southern films, and we're not just talking about Southern filmmakers. We've had a lot of IFP filmmakers, alums work with us over the years, present IFP films, so we love you all, so please talk to me. But what was the question? Oh, the states. North and South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Kentucky, Tennessee, Alabama, Mississippi, and Louisiana. So those are all the states that we work in.
Okay, very good. Andrew, now if anybody has any questions, just throw your hand up and we'll go to questions at any point. You worked in, I guess, the Hudson Valley on Martha, Marcy May, Marlene. How was that? Were there challenges? What were the challenges in doing that in that film?
So, I mean, I had the pleasure of shooting 2 films 2 years back to back in that area, about 30 minutes away from each other. The first was Martha, Marcy May, Marlene, and then followed by We Are Last Summer. So the challenge, of course, is it's not New York City. It's still New York, but it's about 2.5 hours away. So in terms of if there are problems that arise, as they do arise on every indie set, there's something faulty with the equipment or someone needs to be replaced. It does definitely cut into the productivity of the set, and still need to go back to fix the problems. But that said, that will happen anywhere you are, unless you're shooting directly in LA, New York, any of the major metropolises that have the vendors there at your disposal. These are real problems that it doesn't matter where they take place. That said, I loved the experience shooting up there. So I've done 2 films now, and I continue to joke that I think the third one is going to be the one that if I make something else up there, I'm going to have to just get a summer place so that I don't have to spend on hotels for myself. But the people up there have been incredibly accommodating for our productions. One thing that Ward was saying in terms of just shooting locally doesn't matter if it's in New York and Mississippi, wherever, it's about making the most of where you are and working with the Film Commission. So when we were up there, we were working with the Hudson Valley Film Commission, we were working with the New York Governor's Office, the New York Mayor's Office, everyone to basically say, hey, we're gonna be up here, what do you know about the area, how can you help us out in terms of getting the best rates, finding great people that are up there, everything from, where should we be eating food, who should be handling catering, all these elements. When we shot Martha, we actually went to the CIA, the Culinary Institute of America, which is in Poughkeepsie, and we ended up grabbing a a recent graduate to be our caterer on the set. So she basically worked for next to nothing, and it was one of the best catering experiences I've ever had on a film. That said, I did gain about 10 pounds on shooting in Mississippi, so I do blame Ward for that. But again, that's just an example of knowing where you are and using the most of the resources around you. So we knew we were going to be in Hudson Valley, so it wasn't in the city, but it was close to Poughkeepsie, and we could access places like the CIA and local vendors to really help us offset the money that we had, because it was still at the end of the day a very small budget shoot.
Okay. Did you go there for a specific location? I mean, was
there
one
was
of those locations?
Yeah, there was a specific location. The first half of the shoot takes place, if anyone's seen the movie, the first part of Martha, Marcy, May, Marlene takes place at a farm where the cult lives. And that actually was a farm that is still owned by the producer's family, that they've had it for forever. So we actually first made a short film up there. So I guess I've made technically 3 projects up there. A short film the year before called Mary Last Seen, which was the precursor to Martha, that we shot at the same barn. And that was really the basis. We knew we had this location, we got it for free, and it was the crux of everything. It is, as if for anyone that's seen the movie, it's as scary as it is in the movie, and I've spent many nights there, and I still lock my door, and I slept with a knife under my pillow one night because the other producers decided to play games on me. But that's again the power of an amazing location, that it can scare the hell out of you.
Chris, you're from up here somewhere up in the Northeast, but you've adopted Austin. Why?
Let me see. I was born and raised in New England, and I worked for a documentarian here in New England for a couple of years, and then I realized I wanted to sort of reach out and find sort of what was a burgeoning film community. And 15 years ago, I stumbled across Austin, Texas, and literally fell in love with the place upon arrival, and decided that would be home. And then within weeks of that, I met just this burgeoning film community. Jay and Mark Duplass and David and Nathan Zellner and Brian Poyser, and all guys who are making a lot of work. And I realized that this is a place that's not only nurturing, but a place that was enabling filmmakers to make things. So that became Austin, Texas for me.
And you've left there, made a film in St. Louis, made a film in Denver. Why did you? Because those are big places.
Yes.
And how was that?
Sure. I mean, I'm a part of a lot of smaller films, and most of them are Texas-based, but sometimes they have a component that needs to be shot elsewhere. There's a film I just recently produced that had to have a lot of snow. We don't get that in Austin, Texas, so we found our way to Minnesota. And shooting there was a tremendous experience, but what I can say is it really came together for us because we spent a lot of lead time getting to know the film community, not only through the film board, but through meeting a lot of the location scouts, the production managers, the casting directors, and really sort of understanding their backyard and how their community works. That was incredibly important. And I think, as wired as we are, and you can work remotely, I think sort of me and the director being on the ground there and working with a lot of the sort of pre-production crew way in advance made a huge difference because we understood their world. So.
You needed snow and you didn't come to Buffalo?
I'm sorry.
Uh-oh. Please, we need a question. Just to give you an idea, how many of y'all have gone out and done a film in a place that's not your hometown? Oh, that's good. Well, we don't need to talk anymore because y'all know what it's like. Film commissions are all different. I'll talk a bit about how we work in Mississippi, and then I'll ask him if it worked, actually. But we're blessed with an incredible culture in Mississippi, as many of y'all know, and a great heritage and a million stories, as most places. And so we do find ourselves getting calls to film in Mississippi. But sometimes we just get a raw script, and which means that we take the script down, we look for the locations, we narrow it down for a filmmaker. We'll send pictures out and try to help you make a decision of where you're going to film, and then we try to make that happen. You know, if you come in and scout, we'll go with you or put you with someone who will take you to those areas, and then you just start to narrow it down, and then you get into a negotiation for location, as you all know. But then we deal with everything that we can, police departments and chambers of commerce and other areas of state government, and do everything that we can to help you. Now, in Mississippi, our minimum spend on our incentive is $50,000, and so if you are going to spend that much, then we do walk you through and work you into the incentive program early on, so that all of your money that you spend gets qualified to that incentive. And it's a relatively easy process. It's a cash rebate. I have information about our program, and we do try to make it as effortless as possible, because we know everything that y'all do is hard, and we don't need to complicate the issues. Now, one thing that I will always brag upon about Mississippi is that the deputy director of our office, who's not here this week, Nina Parikh, certainly comes from where y'all came from. She produced this film that did okay at Sundance and at the various awards. She produced a film called Ballast, which filmed in Mississippi. We both come from production backgrounds, and so, and as does Jerry, and more and more film commissions. So don't be afraid of us. We kind of get what you're going. We put up with the headache of bureaucracy, and we try to take that headache out of your life, knowing that you have your own bureaucracy to fool with. So that's kind of how we work. Of course, every production is different, and sometimes we are given the latitude to look at the entire state for a location, and sometimes it's like we want to be near New Orleans, or we want to be in Faulkner's hometown, or we want to be somewhere. And again, we help navigate the choices that you make and the choices that you have to make for your film. That said, big significant things, they came in with a terrific script, and then they changed it. Once you guys, got to Mississippi, they started to make some changes to the script, which was interesting and flattering, and there you go. But I want to ask you about your specific experience in Mississippi and how that went.
Sure. So when we had this script that essentially was a blank canvas that could exist realistically in any of the southern states, we knew what we had in terms of a budget, and we had sort of a lot of the essential elements in place, but what we didn't have were the locations, and we didn't have a place in mind. We knew that it took place in the American South, and that the protagonist was a northerner going into the South, and we put our minds together, where should we go? And as a producer, the first thing that really came to my mind is, this is a small, ultra low budget feature. How do we offset the equity raise for a film like this? And looking at the landscape of the southern states, there was one state that had the lowest qualified spend, being Mississippi, with $50,000. So for us going in right away, with a film of our size, we never would have been able to see any money back from the tax program and from the government of that state, if we hadn't gone to Mississippi. And that was definitely a very contributing factor for us to start our conversation with Ward. What I never expected going in was how involved the Film Commission would be in our filming process. So what Ward is not giving himself credit for is that he started off as a location manager, and so he knows the state like the back of his hand. So when we went in, first it was for money, knowing that we would get this 25% back from the state if we spent a certain amount, and we had planned to spend that amount, and we did. And hopefully, knock on wood, we will see that money back, before the end of the fiscal year, which is incredible, especially on a film of our size. But we were very transparent with Ward of, neither myself nor the director had ever been to Mississippi before. We didn't know the locations. We didn't know anything that we didn't read on Wikipedia or in a book. And so we basically sent the script as a blank canvas to Ward and said, we'd love to hear your input. And what we got back were pages and pages of location stills, of vendors, of crew, of places to eat, everything that we could want. So we spent about a month in pre-production down in Mississippi. But realistically, because we had the Film Commission working for us so early, and when I say working for us, they really, it is very important for independent filmmakers to know going into wherever they're shooting to think of the Film Commissions almost as like your free location managers, as your free production coordinators, as your free UPMs. They're people that they want you to be shooting there, and so you should definitely do whatever you can to get the most out of them, because that's what they're there for. As you can hear the banter between Jerry and Ward, these states want our business. We do have the upper hand right now as filmmakers because, if we're not making our films there, the film incentives continue to decrease. So they want our business. So make sure that we give them enough that they can keep busy with. So I'm very pleased with our experience. We shot all over Mississippi, Jackson, Oxford, down in the Gulf, and with locations that Ward provided for us. We had amazing local crew. Again, the food was something else, and we're really pleased with with the film and what it really highlights as this beautiful landscape of a place that we didn't know going in, but the script adapted with being down there.
Okay, crew. It's always a big thing when y'all leave your kind of home port, and sometimes you bring a big chunk of crew with you, and sometimes you have to find your crew locally. Chris, you've moved around. Talk about, the percentage of crew that you would probably take with you and what you always hope to find when you're on location, and maybe if you've been able to find it or how you found it, those challenges.
Sure. No, we, well, I can speak to just the most recent experience. Like I said, we shot a film in Minnesota in January and February, and the budget was low enough that we weren't going to be able to fly in any crew besides our DP. So I had actually met UPM here at IFP a couple of years ago, who became our sort of our go-to in Minneapolis, and I can say that we hired 95% of our crew locally in Minnesota. And what became really apparent was that the production manager we used was very careful to sort of cast our crew, and not only who we should work with and who was right for us, but who wasn't necessarily right for us. And my concern was also Minneapolis isn't necessarily known as a filmmaking hub, so would we be able to find a great costume designer, and would find other department heads? And I can say that at the end of the day, we ended up hiring 95% locally and brought a couple of people in. Previous to that was a film I did in Colorado, where we were lucky enough to bring the entire crew and just relied on location scouts and some local casting to help us out. So I've sort of been on both sides of it.
Anybody have any questions before I keep asking my inane questions? Sorry. Yes.
I just did a film called Kimiko, the Treasure Hunter, that's shot in Minnesota.
Yes.
I just made a film in New York. Well, it was actually all over the U.S. It was a road trip movie. And if we had to do reshoots or anything, I had a question for Jerome. Does New York have certain subsidies? Because our budget is over $50 million. What is the minimum for New York? How do we...
There's no minimum spend, but there are threshold requirements. Now, over 35% of the productions in the program since its beginning in 2004 are under $1 million. We have them down to 100,000 and something. But you have to build and shoot at a set at a qualified production facility. So for a picture of 50,000 or less, sometimes the numbers don't work. But we are happy to go over a budget with you and try to figure out if that's going to work. Plus, you have to apply before you start principal photography for the production credit. You could still go for the post-production credit and get 30 to 35 on your post. But yeah, for the production credit, you would have had to apply before you start principal. And there's no minimum.
So what's the phone number or website for you guys?
It's a new phone number, so I have it here. 212, because they moved to a different floor. 212-803-2328. Or you can go to film credits at esd.ny.gov. ESD for Empire State Development.ny.gov. That's the email. ny.gov.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Boyce. I have a question actually more directly towards Andrew. When you made the choice to shoot up in the Hudson Valley, I mean, I know that was probably location-based because you've had history there. But when you were doing your budgeting along those lines, at what point did you, where did you apply your not excess money, but the percentage spend difference in bringing crew up and having a house for, for GM them versus shooting or finding a location close to that?
Yeah, I mean, realistically, both the films were, low-budget films. So in terms of the excess money that we saved by being a bit further out from, that major city, it just went to paying our crew a little more of what they normally would get. I mean, that's really what it was. I mean, it's a matter of saying, like, okay, we're going to pay you $100 a day, but because we're shooting up here, we'll pay you $110 a day. So there really wasn't, it wasn't in excess, and because it was, this time around, it was all of our second or third film up in that area, so it went into the budget already knowing, okay, this is how much everything costs definitively, so there wasn't really necessarily savings, and that was just knowing the area. But that said, any savings, it really still goes to what you're seeing on screen. There wasn't anything in excess that we were getting out of shooting upstate.
And then shift that question.
Sure.
Because you just mentioned two extremes where you went into one market where you brought, you hired 95%, the other side, you brought in almost 100% of your crew. What were your constraints and what were your parameters doing this? Was it a location based that you had to choose that? Or, because I would think that your spend to bring in crew totally probably offset what would have been on the screen.
Sure. No, I mean, we had multiple versions of the budget going, and at the end of the day, I can say for Minnesota, hiring locally there, saved a great deal of money in per diems and flights and lodging and all those things, and that was directly affected on the screen. Most of the movie was shot there, so it made sense. For Colorado, what I can say is that it was just one portion of a movie that had sort of a road trip element, so we were moving our pieces around, and rather than trying to find specific day players, it worked out to be better to just bring our sort of core crew from place to place. Sure.
So I had sort of a slightly different question that I guess gets at kind of the title for the talk. So sort of after production, I'm curious, I guess this is particularly for Chris or Andrew, but for anyone, I'm curious what you may have done on any of the productions that were really leveraging the fact that they took place in a very specific regional or sort of small town potentially location, in the sense that sometimes those films, the risk is that they are only sort of particularly interesting to those regions. So in terms of, I'm just curious what you may have done beyond, of course, the overall general course of a strong story and the general things that make for a good film. What experience you may have leveraging the community or other things that you may have done in your roles as producers to bring that film or those films to a national or international audience?
Sure. Well, I can speak to a movie I was a part of called The Happy Poet, which was a no-budgeted, micro-budget movie shot in Austin that definitely sort of wore Austin as a T-shirt or as a flag. It hyped that, and it's shot in a park right downtown. And I think what we did in sort of leveraging it in its future and getting it out there was making it the idea that The Happy Poet had to be made in Austin, and it's an all-organic vegetarian comedy, and that it sort of plays to a certain demographic of people. But we used Austin. It world premiered at South by Southwest as well. So Austin became sort of a crucial point or an integral part of talking about the movie. So I can say that. Another movie I was involved with called Lovers of Hate. Some of it shot in Austin and then some in Park City, Utah, and that was written specifically for for a house in Park City that we would have access to. And of course, you know, the folks, that's the backyard of Sundance, and it worked out that way, so.
Yeah, so I mean, for us, for Big Significant Things, which was the Mississippi film, you know, that very much is the backdrop, and the film is very much a Mississippi film. But that said, that is just, you know, that's the palette that we, you know, painted this picture with. So, you know, it starts off, I guess, with the script. And the fact is we had a very universal script that appeals outside of what the location is. So it's just a matter of allowing yourself as the filmmakers to really convey the story, that it doesn't rely solely on the places you're showing. I mean, we also built it around an international cast. Our lead was British, our female lead was Finnish, and so it just happens that the secondary characters were all locals. And so it's about these people interacting in this local environment. So it has that universal feel that anyone, even though if you don't know Mississippi, you can, I guess, identify, or hopefully identify with the film in the sense of being a foreigner in this strange place.
And I just wanted to mention that the vast majority of films that we present on Southern Circuit are not made in the South. You wouldn't believe how many films we present that are made in New York. And you've got audiences that are often composed of people who have never been to New York. They have no idea what that experience it is, what it feels like. So I really think that, once again, it's not necessarily so place-based, that your audiences, or our audiences at least, are very open to experiencing the world through film through other locations.
Yeah, one of the things that we've loved about Southern Circuit in Mississippi is that it brings the filmmaker to our state and to our audience, to our independent audience, which is, it's Mississippi. It's underserved. We don't have, all of the cinemas and the small run films. We don't get those, and Southern Circuit has brought those films to us, but also the filmmakers to meet with our community and to help our community and to explain to them what it took to get a film made. It's very important. That's, I don't know whether, I guess it's that way in New York City to a certain degree, but I think once you get out into the rest of the world, there is an audience for not just your product, but how you make the product. And that's something that, one of the reasons that we support every filmmaker is that because it makes a big difference where we are. And it helps our storytellers. And as you've heard, it helps the storytellers coming in to find the place where the stories actually, emanated from. So, is anybody, any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
I have a question for Chris. I'm actually Minnesota-based director, so secretaries of you work with. Sure. Time, but because you made the choice, and this is a little bit of a shift, but because you made the choice to go to not to New York and not to LA in terms of being a filmmaker, I'm wondering if you could speak a little bit to some of the benefits of that, but also the challenges in terms of making films and still produce.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, there's pros and cons to not being in New York or Los Angeles. I mean, I've lived and worked in Austin for a long time. I think what's great about the community there is it's nurturing and maybe less competitive, but it's enabling, and it's a community you can sort of rely on for a lot of different things. I think I still very much, there's no place in Austin to go find financing for your movie or to speak to a distributor about your movie. So I, very much have a presence in those cities because I can get the movies made there, but I can't necessarily get them financed or get them out to the world. That's a choice I've made, but I also have to be present in the other parts of the business as well. So I hope that answers that sort of.
Time up, it says. I want to say, we always talk about networking, and these things are great about networking and all that, but what we wanted to give to you today was the concept of networks. That Andrew comes from a very strong network of filmmakers here in New York. When I asked him what I should go see at Tribeca this year, I got all these film titles, and he said, well, I worked with this person, and I produced this film, and I worked with that director, and I've done this, and we went to school together. So I had this whole list of things from his network. Chris has found that network in Austin. Bless you. You know, we are film commissions. We are a network. You know, if I don't have it in Mississippi, I'm going to tell you where I think you can find it, actually. So, you know, you can use your film. I tell this to my own filmmakers. Like, if you have a project that's going somewhere that doesn't need Mississippi locations, let me help you find them. Jerry will, of course, tell you to send your movies to Mississippi if he can't find it here. You know, but we are a network, and we network with all of our film liaisons throughout the state. And what a fabulous network for getting your film out. The Southern Circuit Film is an opportunity to get out in front of audiences that are really interested in what it is that you've made. And so we've tried to cover kind of the whole, you know, range of the experience, of the journey for you in terms of making a film and getting it seen. So I thank you all for being here, for being a part of IFP and Independent Film Week, and thank you.